Hi everyone, it's Carolyn from True Crime Chat with Mommy Ramblings, and I'm here with an update in the Todt family murder in Celebration, Florida. We went over the letter that Tony wrote, which essentially pins the blame for everything from the Medicaid fraud to the murdering of all of the children and herself on his wife, Megan. He, in this letter, makes plans for when he's freed and really is quite delusional. And it seems he's using a combination of the Chris Watts and the Lori Vallow Daybell playbooks in this bizarre letter that is just, I can't even, it's just mind-blowing that he thinks anybody will believe this. So let's take a look at first some things that we didn't go into really deeply, which was something that was referenced in the letter, and that's the article that his father, because he wrote this letter to his father. Now, his father, we know, tried to have his mother killed when he was young, and we're going to make a reference of that when we talk about the article that his father and his sister had with their interview they had with The Current, which is a paper up in the Northeast. So let's take a look at that because it's referenced in the letter, and then I will go through the letter again. And for those of you that are not familiar with this case happened, well, it was discovered that the bodies of his wife, Anthony Todt, the man you see pictured in that thumbnail in the upper corner, his wife and his 3 children and the family dog were all murdered in their Celebration, Florida. And Celebration, Florida is very close to Walt Disney World. A lot of people call it a Disney neighborhood, but it is not a Disney property. But it's supposed to be this, idyllic family neighborhood. And the house that you see there is where the family was found. They had been there for a period of time. It's not clear. And Tony was there having ingested a large dose of Benadryl when he was apprehended. He was clearly in poor physical shape, which he says he is now in terrific physical shape and discontinuing his medications, as we'll see in the letter. But this tragedy unfolded. The family had ties to Connecticut, and Tony ran a physical therapy, actually had 2 offices in Connecticut, but he was being investigated for Medicaid fraud. Again, now this is all conveniently placed on the shoulders of his murdered wife. So let's take a look at what's going on here. But first, we're going to look at the article that his sister and, one second. Okay. Sister and father gave. Let me just pull that up so we can look at that. And again, he writes this novel letter, which we will go through, to his father. It's in a mix of printing, and then he goes into script, and which is really bizarre is that he apologizes to his father about the printing, which was way better than the script. And then about, I don't know, halfway through the letter, he changes to this script, which is illegible at some points. Let's see, let me just go to the article. Okay, so he is writing, as I said, in response to his father's participation in a February report by the Hartford Courant in which Robert Bob Todt discussed the traumatic impact of the 1980 shooting of Anthony Todt's mother, which he witnessed as a 4-year-old boy. So let's take a look at this article. And I'm going to post a picture of hopefully this will just go over once I put it on the second screen. It should. Of Anthony and his sister. I don't know why that's, let me bring the resolution down so you can see the entire picture. Okay, and just make sure that the picture is showing there on YouTube for you guys. Let me just make sure of that. One second here, I just want to make sure you have the correct picture. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. So now Tony, let's remember, he confessed to the authorities in January to killing his wife and 3 children in Florida. But now he's taking all that back in this letter. He was 4 years old when he witnessed an attempt to murder his mother, a crime which his father was later convicted of. As friends and loved ones from the family's home state of Connecticut struggled to understand what could have driven a man to the horrific act of killing his entire family, Tony's sister and father are looking to that long ago trauma, if not for an explanation, then perhaps for the shadow of an answer. In an interview with The Current, Tony's sister, Chrissy Caplet, said she'll never know what motivated Tony to kill his family. I'm just going to put up another picture. I'm going to just change pictures while we're going through. So if you hear a pause, it's just me trying to put up pictures. But she pointed to a federal investigation that had targeted Tony for an alleged Medicaid fraud scheme, which had the potential to land him in prison for a year or 2. She drew links between Tony's childhood trauma and the looming specter of his own imprisonment, wondering if they may be pieces of the puzzle. Tony, being a 4-year-old and seeing his dad taken away, I don't think he wanted the same childhood for his kids, Caplet said. It doesn't excuse it. It certainly doesn't excuse it. Tony's father, who spoke to The Current separately, also pondered the lingering effects of the violence that surrounded 4-year-old Tony. Even though Robert Bob Todt still maintains his innocence in the 1980 crime and had little involvement in his children's upbringing, he acknowledges that Tony witnessed someone's attempt to kill his mother and said it must have affected Tony deeply. There's only so much trauma a young kid can take at that point, Bob Todt said. The Todt family is now once again part of an unthinkable, gruesome chapter. In mid-December, Tony's wife and children living in Florida went silent. Their loved ones up north didn't hear from them for nearly a month, until police in Florida made a grisly discovery. They found the family, Tony's wife, Megan, the couple's 3 children, 13-year-old Alec, 11-year-old Tyler, and 4-year-old Zoe, and their dog, Breezy, dead in their Celebration, Florida home. The family had moved to Florida from Colchester, Connecticut, where Tony still operated a physical therapy business. Authorities said Tony, now 44, confessed to killing his wife and 3 children in their home, which sits on the outskirts of Walt Disney World. The brutal killings have been a living nightmare for the many who knew and loved the family. I never thought my brother could do this, Chrissy Caplet said. Not in a million years. Caplet, who lives in Connecticut, and Bob Todt both spoke to The Current in the weeks following Tony's confession. Neither could fully answer the question of what could have motivated Tony to kill his family. Chrissy Caplet said, there is no possible answer that would make sense. It's rational minds trying to understand something irrational, she said. But Caplet said she thinks Tony carried the trauma of their mother's attack with him into adulthood. I absolutely think this impacted him more than he knew, Caplet said. Let's talk about that. In March of 1980, when Tony was 4 and his family still lived in Pennsylvania, someone came into the Todt's family Ben Salem home and shot Tony's mother. According to the 1981 Philadelphia Inquirer article, Tony heard his mother screaming before she was shot. Bob Todt was later charged with attempted murder, and at the trial, the prosecution laid out a shocking narrative. Bob Todt, at the time a teacher, had hired a student to murder his wife, Loretta, as the pressure of his extramarital affairs grew overwhelming. To this day, Bob Todt is adamant that he had nothing to do with the attempted murder of his then wife. His stance has remained unchanged since his arrest, and at trial, he testified in his own defense. Even Loretta stood by him throughout the trial and for a time after his conviction. Alan Rubenstein, now a judge, but at the time an assistant district attorney in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and the prosecutor in Bob Todt's case, said the young teacher had fooled everyone around him. He was a very convincing man, charming sort of guy, Rubenstein previously told The Current, but he was also absolutely cold and remorseless. Bob Todt was convicted in December of 1980 and initially sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer article. In 1984, according to the Philadelphia Daily News article, Bob Todt went before a judge again, and although his conviction stood, his sentence was reduced to 5 to 10 years. Despite his claim of innocence on his criminal conviction, Bob Todt takes responsibility for the extramarital affair that took him out of his family home that night, which he says which left his family open to violence and exposed his son to a traumatic experience that may have shaped the course of his life. Tony, I'm sure, had some problems that he had to address, Bob Todt said. In the months following the shooting, Tony and his family were hit with the fallout. Loretta's recovery from a gruesome injury, Bob Todt's arrest and conviction, an ardent fight against the conviction, and eventually a move from Pennsylvania to Connecticut. After the move, while Bob Todt was still in prison, Loretta began to accept the prosecution's version of events, according to a 1984 Philadelphia Daily News article. And with her realization came another shift for Tony and his family. After formally divorcing Bob Todt in 1981, Loretta later remarried. Caplet said her mother's decision to move and remarry was, for her and Tony, the best chance we had of having a somewhat normal childhood. Caplet also said that her mother and her mother's husband, the man she considers to be her true father, supported Tony as much as humanly possible. And I'm just going to put up another photo here of a sign that was placed on the Colchester Green by the organization Colchester is Kind in response to news that the Todt family, who lived in Colchester until 3 years ago, were missing. The Osceola County, Florida Sheriff's Department announced father and husband Tony Todt confessed to killing his wife and 3 children. So that sign was in their old hometown. But Tony nonetheless struggled. According to a 1981 Philadelphia Inquirer article, Tony was plagued by nightmares after what he'd seen. Loretta and her husband gave as much support and whatever Tony needed, Chrissy Caplet said. He went to therapy for years. As Loretta built a new life in Connecticut, she also shielded her children from their biological father. And while Loretta worked to move her children forward, Bob Todt found ways to keep them symbolically close. During his years in prison, Bob Todt had his children's names tattooed on his chest in a small black script that has faded and smudged with the passing years. After he was released, online records indicate that Bob Todt stayed in Pennsylvania for a time and in 1999 registered a consulting company named TC Enterprises, Inc. It was named after his children. But for decades, he didn't actually interact with his children until back-to-back meetings in 2010. In January of 2010, Caplet said she found out that Tony had been communicating with Bob Todt over Facebook. She was livid that her brother hadn't told her, and she asked him, once you open that door, how easy is it going to be to close it? Tony seemed drawn to their biological father, possibly out of a sense of obligation, Chrissy Caplet said, and soon they were arranging a get-together. He was drawn, and I felt like I was dragged, Chrissy said. I'm just going to put a picture of the beautiful Todt children here. Okay, and that's from left, Alec 13, Tyler 11, and Zoe 4. Alec and Tyler were musicians for their ages, their music teacher, Bobby Sedgwick, said. The first visit was in early 2010 when Bob Todt spent some time at Tony's house in Colchester. While there, he met Tony's wife, Megan, and the couple's 2 sons. Their daughter, Zoe, had not yet been born. In his recollection of that day, Bob Todt said he remembered Megan vividly. There's just no way to describe her, he said. She was the mother of all mothers. He remembers watching Tyler, the younger of the two boys, start dancing in the living room. He was just a baby, and Bob Todt remembers Megan scooping him up and dancing with him. Bob Todt says the visit left him with an impression that Tony's family loved him and that Tony loved them. He saw his two children again a couple of months later when they attended the funeral of their aunt, Bob Todt's sister. Meeting people for the first time when they're adults, you can usually tell if they're all together or not, Bob Todt said. He thought his children both seemed all together. After 2 visits in 2010, Bob Todt did not see his children again. He texted them and wrote letters every so often, but those messages usually went unanswered. Chrissy said she and Tony had decided to cut all contact with their biological father. Until in early January, Chrissy Caplet reached out to him with a text. Bob Todt was living in Massachusetts, and she wanted to know if he'd heard from Tony. At that point, Tony's young family had not been seen for weeks. Chrissy said her family knew about the federal investigation into Tony's alleged Medicaid fraud scheme. They knew he was facing the possibility of jail time, so when they didn't hear from Tony's wife or kids for several weeks, although there was intermittent communication with Tony, Chrissy said she thought they might have been making a run for it. And if they were making a run for it, Chrissy thought maybe they had reached out to Bob Todt for help. We were searching for anything, trying to understand, Caplet said. We thought that, yes, they were on the run. Caplet said it wasn't that the family actually thought Tony would flee, but the alternative, the reality, was unthinkable. Several days after Chrissy texted Bob Todt, the grim news broke. In the days following the discovery of the 4 bodies in the Celebration, Florida home, police said Tony confessed that he had killed his family the month before. All of the bodies were found decomposing in the house, and the autopsies showed that all but the youngest child, 4-year-old Zoe, had suffered stab wounds to their abdomens. Tony is now facing 4 charges of second-degree murder, with each charge carrying the possibility of life in prison. If his charges are upgraded to first-degree murder, a conviction by a Florida jury could leave him facing the death penalty. Tony is being held in Osceola County Jail without the option of bail. Despite the federal investigation and alleged fraud scheme that has come to light in recent weeks, some of which Tony had not told his wife about, authorities said, Bob Todt described Tony as an honest man, and because of this belief, Bob Todt said he had no doubt that Tony was telling the truth when he confessed to killing the family. Even in the brief encounters I've had with him, when he was older, he was truthful, Bob Todt said. Tony said he did it, he did. Looking back, Chrissy Caplet said she wishes her family had known more about what was going on with Tony, but it's impossible to fully gauge a person suffering from the outside, she said. I wish we would have known, so we would have been able to help, Chrissy said. But now we'll never have the answers. Well, Tony thinks he's giving answers now in this novel of a letter he's written. With his confession, he had said that his wife had no idea of what happened with the billing in the office and, absolved her of that. He's now taking all of that back and going back to saying, going with this new crazy fabrication that his wife is responsible for everything. So let's take a look at that letter now. And while I'm pulling that up, I'll just put this on the screen and let me get that letter. It's just really crazy. Okay, 1 second. So yeah, if you've been following this with us, then, we just thought this was totally didn't see this coming, just thought, he pled guilty and he was just going to, go on with that. But I guess not. I guess not. Okay. I'm just going to pull the letter up. And like I said, a lot of it is not legible. Not a lot of it. I shouldn't say a lot of it. But we will go through this again, maybe with fresh pair of eyes here. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this letter over. Okay. And let's try to zoom it in a little bit. So if you're reading from home. Okay, so this is addressed to his father, Robert Todt. And you see that it's from Tony, Anthony Todt. Robert, and this is dated June 19th, 2020. Please excuse the impersonal nature of printing in this letter. As we go on, you'll see that the printing was much better, and I don't know why he needed to ask for, to be excused from it, because you could at least read most of it. But seeing as it is too painful to write legible script, the fact is he didn't write legible script later on. It will have to do. I will explain later. He's always going to explain later. I have recently been released off of suicide watch, as I was placed due to the circumstances, horrific as they were in December of 2019, that the media and sheriff's department here are making me out to be the next butcher of Baghdad. Thanks to counseling here, the chaplain services, I think that's the services, the chaplain services and my sister, I am beginning to resemble the proud man I was prior to the incident. So he just, which shattered me beyond comprehensible ways. I remain in isolated, protected custody to protect me, as I am not jail material. He says this a couple of times, that he's not jail material, because he's such an upstanding man. Never mind, what he even pled guilty to doing. And to protect my case, I write to you in response to the letters I received from you to correct all inaccuracies created and generated by the creative writing machine, press in parentheses, to sell papers and the sheriff's department who want to score a big win after screwing up a prior murder case that the governor of Florida had to intervene and move it out of this district. To respond to your absurd allegations in your last letter and to offer you forgiveness. He's going to offer him forgiveness. First of all, I am 10,000% innocent. Thanks for clearing that up, Tony. Of all these preposterous charges. It looks like both on this state case and on the proposed Medicaid fraud case. The statements taken from me were interesting to say the least. I'm writing to you in confidence. Please do not share with anyone but your wife, as I need not to be shown off as a trophy again. Believe me, no trophy and no prize. And your letter is all over the internet. Nor do I need to contend with the results of the telephone game when it is time to testify in a couple of months. Please do not break my confidence. I am ashamed to say, yes, I did attempt suicide multiple times. As to my recollection, I want to say 8 times. I am told this is natural given the circumstances of having the rug pulled out from underneath me, and my world shattered. My wife and my children were and still are everything to me. I love my wife still very deeply. And it will be the hardest thing to sit there and tell everybody that it was her that did this when I was not home, and then she committed suicide in front of me. I have forgiven her, as I know she was chronically sick since 2011, 2012, when a bug bit her in Disney, of all places. That, with time and everything else, led to our first miscarriage of Avery Nicole, borderline liver failure, drug-induced hepatitis. He's got LFTs were 3,800 to 3,825. Normal is 25. It's like, I think he's going to say, it looks like Vegas he has here, but I don't know if he means vague. Nerve dysfunction, depression. In addition to that, she suffered from her father's suicide. One of my close friends in 2002, 2003, tachycardia. She would wake up with a heart rate of greater than 180, breathing difficulties at rest, Lyme disease, chronic pain, joint, I don't know what joint, it looks like joint something. Weight loss from 125 pounds, muscularly ripped from being an internationally trained yoga teacher to barely holding on to 90 pounds, with loss of all female features, in addition to a multitude of other physical and functional deficits. We moved to Florida in our condo originally because the sun and warmth made her feel better, and eventually permanently for that reason. And there were more homeschooling and performing arts opportunities for the boys. We sold the house in Colchester in 2017 after just finishing a greater than $50,000 remodel that included all new furniture for living room, dining room, kitchen, new kitchen cabinets, new counter, painting all downstairs, new lighting, finishing the basement, ripping up the grout while maintaining the kitchen tile, replacing grout, completing a 1,600 to 1,800 square foot two-level deck with a hot tub, and replacing the carpet upstairs with engineered hardwood. I essentially did the work by myself with intermittent help from friends and help from my boys when they would fly back with me. Not even a year after remodeling, she decided we should move to Florida full-time and sell the house. Whatever she wanted, I did. I took my vows of love, honor, and obey, protect as religion and sacred. We then moved into the rental house at 202 Reserve Place in Celebration because we outgrew our condo in May of 2019, and it had a saltwater pool, which was good for her, and an office apartment above the detached garage that we could use to transition the business to Florida. We were not able to sell it for what it was worth. Hence, I commuted every week, and then I arrived in Connecticut on Tuesday. I would work from 2 to 9, and it says treating patients, and then in the office doing work until 12 or 1 a.m. Returning Wednesday and Thursday in the office at 6 a.m., treating from 6:30 to 9 p.m., and working until 1 a.m. I would stay at a hotel or mom's couch, my choice, on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, or at an Airbnb, and Thursday night usually sleep in the office for a couple of hours, as my flight was between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., so I would be home in Florida in time to pick Zoe up at preschool at 11:45 a.m. or various other things previous to that. I would catch sleep on the plane or wherever time permitted. It was not healthy. I realized that, as I have seen recent newspaper pics of me, but I did it all for family. When I was in Florida, I would treat my wife 2 to 3 times a day, usually 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and personal training activities to tolerance in after something daily. He would do the food shopping, and Pete prepared 90% of the meals. He also prepared 2 something meals for when I left for Connecticut, so my son could warm up as necessary. He would take the boys to and from the homeschool co-op, 45 minutes away, on Mondays and to co-op on Tuesdays, with sometimes delaying his departure depending on the home situation, and bringing them home Tuesday afternoon prior to an evening flight. In addition, Zoe was driven to and from school Monday and Tuesdays by me, and home on Fridays by me. The boys were home Wednesday, Thursdays, Fridays, doing their homeschool work, and Meg would drive Zoe to and from school 10 minutes on Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday mornings to school. It was a routine I fully accepted. I loved being a husband and father. In addition, I would attend to whatever personal needs Meg needed depending on the day. That included carrying her upstairs to bed, helping her shower, dress, doing Zoe's hair, I sucked at it, and whatever else. I embraced it. I was determined she was going to get better, and she was. Though the good days were amazing, but the bad days were even more depressing for her. We kept quiet for the most part, because that is how Meg wanted it. Yeah, I'm sure that's how Meg wanted it. That's because this is all lies, Tony. She was raised that way, as her mom was, the town drunk. Her grandfather was a major Democratic politician for over 30 years, and she didn't want those same eyes on her as were on her mother for her multiple ailments. I respected it. She was my wife, and I loved her. Like I said, he loved her. Like I said prior, I am still deeply in love with her. Yeah, right. Okay. We realized that, and I guess you didn't want to cross it out because that would make it look really bad. Call that illogical. I don't care. We had a love between us, described best, I think, by C.S. Lewis, being storge, a Greek term for family love. It takes the other 3 loves of the Greek language, phileo, friendship, eros, erotic, and apago, God, to the next level. We didn't forget, rather discuss things, although we didn't fight. Sorry about that. Rather discuss things, although much wasn't different between us, as we made sure we built a foundation of trust, respect, and admiration for and with each other before we married. It was very important to both of us, given our pasts. Hers from an alcoholic mother and living in silence because of family and political, I think that's supposed to say, for family and political reasons, and mine stemming from 1980, that left serious trust issues, nightmares, fear, and fear of people even thinking I had any infidelity issues. We didn't even make love until 1 week prior to our wedding, after almost 8 years of dating. Our relationship was very close and special. Anyways, too much information, I'm sure, but I thought you needed a better understanding of our relationship. Yeah, it's called Tony's version, total fabrication. If I was there that night, this never would have happened. Hence the self-blame and self-condemnation. But because I was being selfish, I have lost everything near and dear to me. And when I leave here in a couple of months, yeah, he's going to leave there in a couple of months as a free man, guys, I will be leaving homeless and without clothes. I've lost 90 pounds so far. Blue Sky Realty and Celebration has formally evicted us from the rental house where everything is, including furniture, clothes, and specialties, remembrances of my family, especially my kids. Most things can be replaced except for the family piano, which was Meg's growing up, and the boys learned on it, and Zoe was beginning to learn. It is the most treasured item to me, practically, in the world. But because I have been evicted, he wrote something. I'm trying to see what he wrote there. They have the right to sell everything to make up their costs. I understand my only hope is the estate sale is delayed due to the virus, and I'm out of here before it to settle the lien and take back possession of the material things. I doubt it will happen, but I'm hoping and praying. In reference to the condo, which is furnished and has closed there, I'm facing foreclosure as the mortgage has not been paid since December. There are some reasons the family hasn't done so, and I do not know the status of my finances, as Meg handled all of that, of course, right? I hated doing the financial stuff and have limited time to dedicate to it, as she loved it and had time and took over full control in 2013, 2014. More so because of this guilt she was having from the buildup of medical bills. Most were private pay. I had a gigantic life insurance on myself, but I only had a 200 to 300K on her. But when I get out, that will help out things. That will help set things right and get on my feet, I guess. Yeah, okay, Tony, right. It's being held because of the charges against me, as I am sole beneficiary. I just hope timing is right and everything is delayed because of the economy status due to the virus. Here's hoping, I guess. I didn't do now here we have this lovely script now, right? I didn't do the finances and trusted her with that as a team/partnership. I knew passwords and usernames as I set up the online account and essentially used the same throughout. Oh well, back to the explanations. I wasn't there that night because I was selfish and wanted a wonderful day, as Meg described it, into a most I'm trying to say it almost looks like rightful day. I don't even know what. Meg woke up for the first time since March of 2019, and even before, through intermittently without any pain. Instead of me treating her at 4:30 a.m., we spent time together until Zoe came in wanting breakfast. The day was phenomenal. My relaxed something for the most part, given us something on occasion. And I spent the day with the kids doing everything. Now he's going to be this wonderful dad now in his mind, from basketball to soccer to talking to Elsa freeze tag, football, you name it. Meg was inside watching TV, reading recipes, listening to music, asking and make something and making snacks, resting and making snacks. It was the best I've seen her in a while, especially since our miscarriage in September of 2019 of Connor Michael. That was horrible to say the least. He was 8 to 10 weeks in gestation. We initially found out at our ultrasound when Zoe was present to see baby Todt for the first time. The tech and radiologists were cold sounding, I think it's cold sounding in their handling of it. We were supposed to have a follow-up ultrasound 2 weeks later, as there was no heartbeat heard or detected, but we lost Connor prior to that. Instead of leaving the ultrasound happy, it was worse than a funeral. The result of our love, something this first weekend away was no longer. The result of our love, I guess that baby was conceived the first weekend they got away, was no longer. It was a happy surprise to us to conceive, as we were not trying. But who knew a woman can double ovulate after the age of 40? Never covered that in sex ed or any of my medical classes. Anyways, I would ask her several times throughout the day if she needed anything and if everything was okay. And she would respond, "Everything is wonderful. If you get a chance, can you fix the alarm sensor on the back door, and can you go to the condo to get Zoe's Mickey necklace? She and I would really appreciate it, as she keeps asking me for it." I told her that I would go after dinner if all was okay, as I have some maintenance tasks there, and it would be easy to do without the children. She responded, "Perfect, as I want everybody to go to bed early anyways, because everyone is still getting over the stomach bug." I agreed and told her I would crash at the condo or at the office apartment over the garage. I was a bull in a china closet when I was tired, as I was extremely because of insomnia the night before, and she started to use natural oils and air fresheners that were giving me sinus issues since Thanksgiving, and would snore or just have difficulty sleeping. I also told her I would fix the sensors one night after the boys were asleep with Gorilla Glue, because Tyler would jump up to touch them and constantly knock them off. He was my energetic and daring son. He wanted me to go skydiving with him on his 18th birthday, and I told him it would have to be his 21st birthday, as I would need a serious drink before and after. Whereas Alec was into cars and wanted me to be his best man at his wedding. Shows the difference between them. He wanted a blue Camaro convertible for his first car, as I rented one for a I don't know if it says venture or weekend, but I told him we would start him off with a pink Cadillac. He didn't enjoy that. I did, smiley face. Sorry, I switched to script. Yeah, we are too. I hope you can read it. We can't. It was tedious and painful. You see, when they took me into custody, they dropped me down 10 stairs, handcuffed behind my back. Needless to say, after hearing, that's why we was I don't even know what that is, onto someone in custody, deputy. I have extreme back pain, shoulder and neck pain, and bilateral hand wrist pain. I have nerve damage in my left hand, right wrist sprain, right shoulder rotator cuff disruptions, and lateral tear, left shoulder rotator cuff problem, cervical and lumbar, what is that? Idiopathy, I can't even see that. something else, dysfunction and daily migraines. I am limited in sitting for about 15 minutes, something to pain, and standing for 15 to 20 minutes. I take Tylenol 600 milligrams when the nurses remember, but hesitate to take anything stronger. They gave me a med to help me with the nerve pain so I could sleep, but they gave me freaking Tales from the Crypt nightmares, so they discharged it. So part of my day, I do self-PT and keep daily notes. I'm a mess, but mentally healthy and a clean bill of health for the most part, except for orthopedic issues. My hypertension, EKG, thyroid, sugars, CK levels, and cholesterol are all normal now, and pending the results of the blood work, should be discharged of all of the remaining meds next week. I will stay on the low-dose antidepressants until after the trial by my agreement. I'm 10 to 15 pounds from my ideal weight now and have the re-emergence of my six-pack. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'd like to see that. And I know I wouldn't. That I had playing college soccer. So in that department, all is good or improving. So before dinner, I moved the minivan to the driveway under the basketball hoop as I needed tools for maintenance. In addition, I asked the boys to load any boxes so I could dispose of them at the appropriate dumpster at the condo. I was also bringing the minivan over to the condo as to bring more stuff back to the house. After dinner, Meg warmed up leftovers and I had a protein shake. The boys said everything was set, and Meg pleaded with me to get the necklace as Zoe was driving her nuts about it. I drove over to the condo, literally thinking to myself about how wonderful the day was, about how my Zoe was going to light up the room with her smile when I brought back the necklace. Upon parking the van, I went to get the tools out, and they were not there. I walked back 5 minutes and found the boys. I walked back. I don't know. I don't know. That can never. And found the boys playing basketball. I asked them what happened to the tools. They forgot. Now, he never said tools. He said boxes, right? That he could dispose. So he's all over the place in this letter. And if you notice all of his many, many details that he's giving an extraneous amount of details. And that's usually happening when someone's lying. They're just putting in all of this stuff and just making this a total fabrication, in my opinion here. So this doesn't even make sense. He walked back, found the boys playing basketball, but then he's the model dad. I asked them what happened to the tools. They looked dumbfounded. Of course, they looked dumbfounded because this didn't happen, number one. And number two, you said boxes in your letter. And pointed and pretended, I don't even know what he's saying here, and to them on the base, and pointed to them on the base of the basketball hoop. They explained that the doors were locked, so they left them. So they left them there, of course. They only checked one door, the hatch. I couldn't be mad at them, as I did the same thing often to my father growing up. Instead, I chased them, wrestled with them, laughed, and tickled them. Yeah, he's a wonderful father, right? He couldn't even be mad at them. They were great boys, never needed any real discipline as they were brought up correctly. Every once in a while, they needed to be separated, being competitive brothers, but they were wonderful to all, especially their little sister. Their relationship was awesome, and she adored them in every way. The boys asked me to play basketball, and I, of course, said yes. Of course, he's a model father. I always remembered a friend of mine doing one of these something silly farm dances like the electric slide on soccer opening day. And I, of course, laughed at him as he really looked foolish. He turned to me and said, "Kids only ask you to do things with them for a short amount of time and then they stop. And I don't want to have any regrets." I remembered that daily and now I am living it. So we played for a while in spite of being exhausted, and again, a great dad. And it was starting to get late. So I talked them, I feel like I'm reading a little kid's letter trying to decipher this. So I told them to go inside and I was going back to the condo with the tools. They said Mom was preparing dessert and was I going to join them? And I said no, as I was trying to lose some weight, etc. Yeah, etc. is more like it. I told them to remind Mommy that I was going to sleep at the condo or the upstairs apartment, and I did the same thing often. They put that one in there, that I was going to stay in the upstairs apartment, and I hugged and kissed them after walking back to the minivan to get my keys. Get his keys. I sat in the driver's seat and wanted to take a small siesta. I was tired. The snooze button became my best friend until the battery of the iPod drained. I thought I had my phone, but was mistaken. Meg could still find me and alert me through the Find My Phone app if she needed me, so I wasn't worried. I woke up with the morning sun and was in a panic, not knowing the time, but knew I missed our 4 to 4:30 a.m. standing treatment time and was prepared to receive a scolding. Yes, I know. As I would on occasion if I forgot to do something, but this would have been harsher. I tried to start the minivan, but it wouldn't start. Turns out the seat was pushed too far back to fully engage the brake sensor, so I grabbed my tool bag and scurried back to the house, fearful of the scolding. Yeah, I'm sure you were, Tony. So this means he was asleep in the driveway of the house that they were in. Is that correct? And why did he have to start the car? It doesn't make any sense. And then he scurried. Or did he scurry from the condo the 5 minutes that he said, what is this? But then he said he walked, but he had the van with him when he went back to the basketball. This doesn't make any sense, Tony. Sorry. I returned home and I put my tools in the garage. Yeah, so he scurried back by foot. Yeah, okay. And noticed our electric car was there. I entered the house to find the melted, it looks like, dessert and remnants on plates on the table. It was some sort of fruit pudding pie in a graham cracker crust. It looked very good, as all my wife's desserts were, but it smelled horrible. Turns out it was a Benadryl pudding pie. I didn't realize Tylenol PM or Benadryl liquid could freeze. I went to the bathroom downstairs to pee. See, he's giving all these extraneous details. And newly diagnosed with diabetes 2. That is under control now. Passing the TV that was on ESPN, talking about college football. Normal, as Alec and I always had some sort of sports bet. This was about Joe Burrows from LSU going number 1. I thought he would be the something to being a Heisman winner, and he thought Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, Alabama, something to his resume and diversity. If I won, he had to eat a pepperoni pizza. If I won, I had to eat a seafood dish of his choosing, not raw, but he promises there would be a lot of tentacles. He and I were, hold on, he and I were, what were you? Buds, but he always competed against me. I favored the Yankees, so of course he had to be a Red Sox fan. Sorry for the length of this letter, but I thought since Chrissy brought you into this, I guess they were looking for me. And because you contacted the Hartford Courant for the article, you should be told the details. I wanted her, I would have called a press conference months ago, but I was told by my attorney, who happened to be some of the best in the state, that that was not the appropriate way to handle this case. So I just sat in idle, making a list of lawsuits when I get out. In addition, okay, now I put that again. In addition, writing this letter on recommendation of the chaplain. I'll explain later. Anyways, I came out of the bathroom and found Meg at the top of the stairs. I ran to her, ready to explain why I wasn't there. She started tearing and smiling and saying, "You are alive. They didn't get you." I was confused and saw her wearing my gray Hydro Works shirt. Okay, of course she's probably wearing a shirt, because now he's going to explain all of the evidence. So if there was his shirt that was covered with his DNA or blood, of course it's going to be Meg that's wearing that shirt. And there was a stain on it. I asked what was going on, if the kids reminded her where I was, where were the kids, and if everybody was okay. She said the kids were fine and everybody was okay now that I was there. She led me into their bedroom and began telling me about her vision she got yesterday while meditating, telling her the end of the world was beginning, with viruses attached and eventually invasion. Okay, so now we're going into not only the Chris Watts playbook, we're into the Lori Vallow Daybell playbook, okay, with the end of the world, blaming the wife, but he's got all the evidence now. Watch, he'll have touched everything for some reason. I was captured and I was going to be killed, and she was granted salvation with the boys once their souls were released, right? Because she was sicker than we all realized. The vision was telling her she would not be strong enough to survive. She had turned more and more spiritual over the last few years for something due to her illness. I can write a whole book on it. Yeah, let's not do it by this method of writing, because nobody will be able to read it. I didn't really believe in it, but whatever made her feel better, as long as no sacrifices, etc., I supported her. Long story short, she gave them the Benadryl Tylenol PM pie, separated them, woke up at 11:30, stabbed, and then suffocated each one. At the news of this, I ran to the bathroom and puked. I was weak. She continued to tell me what happened and then wanted to pray and meditate together. I needed to see my kids. When I went in, now see here, he loses the details, okay? He tells us when he went into the bathroom, what he did, but I went in. Where did you go in? Why didn't he say which child's bedroom, okay? He loses it here because this is such a fabrication, and he's losing it here. And it's easy to see that, okay? When I went in, where was I? But I didn't believe, okay. I was horrified. It was peaceful. No signs of struggle, as she said, but I didn't believe her that there wasn't a struggle. I got a warm washcloth and then it looks like, and wiped each of their faces, held them, cried, and wanted to make them look more comfortable by cleaning their mouth, closing their mouths, eyes, and loosening their nasal passages. It was normal for me to wash their faces when they weren't well. Throughout this whole time, Meg kept checking on me very calmly, asking me if I was okay while drinking something. Turns out the Benadryl she had been stockpiling for a while. I would respond to her, "No, you murdered our children." And he would respond. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't upset, he wasn't calling 911. He was just saying, "No, you murdered our children." And she would respond, "Relax and believe in what I saw." I realized their souls, I released their souls. She was calm. And let's see. She was calm. Something, and with it, throughout it, still amazes me this day. She has told me earlier she something this for a while in case it would happen. Oh, she researched this for a while in case it would happen on a website, Cura or Cura.com and Reddit.com. When I returned to the bedroom, where did he return from? I demanded the phone as I did not know where they were. She claimed she had hidden them, and not to worry, but have faith. She gave me an empty family-sized liquid Benadryl to throw away in the garbage bag she had in the tub. I took the opportunity to look there for the phones. Okay, so he's got his prints now on the family-sized Benadryl. Okay, right? Because he's in the midst of all this, his children being murdered, he's throwing away the family-sized Benadryl that his wife gave him that she murdered the kids, right? Okay. And then he's ruffling through the garbage bag while his prints are all over that because he's looking for the phones in this trash bag that's in the tub. Okay? All right. So he's looking for the phones. Upon going back into the bedroom, I heard a horrific sound of something rubbing a latex balloon. What? She had stabbed herself. So now, does stabbing yourself sounds like rubbing a latex balloon? Okay, I don't know. Hope never to find that out. She had stabbed herself the first time. I ran to her bedside and she said, "Please don't leave me alone to die, as I didn't leave the kids to die alone. When I pull this knife, it will go quick. I can feel it happening now." Before I could react, okay, because he couldn't react, right? The knife was pulled and thrown on the bed someplace. There was blood, a lot of blood. I begged her to let me call. I would take all responsibility, as I felt it was all my fault. I'll explain. After a while, nothing happened. She had more of her drink. Okay, so she's stabbed herself, taken the knife out. She's bleeding out, but she's having some more of her drink. And she ordered me to leave her for a few minutes as I was stressing her out with all of my pleading, because, he just couldn't take control at that time, even though he took these vows to protect them and took those seriously. The first thing would be to call someone, but he had to keep begging her permission, not realize she was not in her right state of mind if this fabrication was true, which it's not. So this never ever happened. My opinion, allegedly, right? Never happened. So then he left because he was stressing her out there, okay? With all of his pleading and asking her to go for help, where the phones were, etc. I took this opportunity to look in the boys' room for a phone in their hiding spaces. I couldn't go to the neighbors as I would because he violate the agreement. Okay, he's worried about that. It's okay that she's dying, but I'm not going to violate the agreement of not leaving her alone. Irrational, I know, and where our kind neighbors were never home due to work or mostly snowbirding. I heard the shower on, toilet flush, and sink running. Somehow she was up. When I returned to the bedroom, she again was pounding another family-sized liquid Benadryl and gave me the empty bottle to throw away. Okay. That reminds me of Chris Watts pounding the fruit. Remember that? This guy really sounds like he's been reading up on these cases. So he says she was pounding another family-sized Benadryl, and of course she gives it to him to throw away. She doesn't mind throwing the knife on the bed, but apparently she wants these family-sized Benadryls to be put into the trash, and she wants him to do it so that he gets his hands, DNA, everything on this, right? Yeah. Okay. So she gave him that to put in the trash, and he took the opportunity to look for the phone again. I asked where all the Benadryl was, and she said, it is in the linen closet, a place I never went, and I looked, there were no phones. So he's went into the linen closet, of course. As I went back to the bedroom, I saw Meg on the bed holding the knife still on her abdomen, saying, this one is out of something, as she plunged the knife into her liver. She pulled it out and dropped it on the bed. I ran to her. I said, let me get help. I will take all responsibility for this. My mother, father, sisters, and your grandparents will take care of you. She responded, I have to be with my babies. Please pray Grandma doesn't find out I killed the kids. It would kill her. Her grandmother was very, very close to me, and I knew this also, especially with the troubled family history, or that on that side of the family. She then put her hand on a pillow, and then she had part on her face and said, please help me pass. I'm in pain, 10 times greater than childbirth, and I can't breathe. I said I couldn't, and she pleaded and pulled my hand on her face. Of course, right? This is how now right? I couldn't. I watched and just left it there. Many moments later, she began hitting my arm, pulling it, maybe defensive wounds, right? Pulling it harder on her face and then pushing it away as she was saying something. I thought she had changed her mind. Nope. She said, I finally found something you suck at, because he was great at everything else. I couldn't do it. I told her I couldn't do it. Excuse me. She said, I finally found something you suck at. I can still breathe. I told her I couldn't do it, and she pleaded. I started praying for the strength and the balls to do it. He couldn't even harm a fly, remember? She died before I could help her. I couldn't do it. Moments later, she began breathing. I now know this was a reflux, and I said, I'll ask for forgiveness later, and I tried CPR until I physically couldn't anymore. This was the final act of my chapter of failure. I failed as a father because I wasn't there to protect my children, the thing I blame you the most for, and I'm no better. I failed as a husband. I wasn't there to fix Meg or find someone that could, and I wasn't able to succeed in CPR and administration 3 times. Persons, I was sufficient. I succeeded on patients, but the person that means the most to me, I failed on. I wanted to die to be with my family. I also felt I didn't deserve to live. After I cleaned up the kitchen, because, right, per request of Meg. Well, when did she make that request? We didn't hear that, right? He puts down everything. He didn't tell us anything about her request there. I moved the children into our room onto their mattresses in comfortable sleeping positions with a pillow, covered them for warmth and protection, and put a rosary in each of their hands. I put Zoe on the bed with us. I wanted to die, and I wanted my family together, not spread throughout the house. From there, I have little memory. Basically, I remember all the suicide attempts, yet another thing I sucked at, and puking up cheese, Benadryl, and something stuffed cabbage, as I thought was a sign from Meg. Supposedly, I had phone calls with people, text arguments with people. My family was looking for me, amongst other things. I'm ashamed. I ask for forgiveness and understanding from all. Okay. Now he puts other facts, I guess things he forgot to put in there. Okay. After I was left to fall down the stairs, I was assisted the rest of the way to the bottom, where I encountered 3 voices. One said, we were looking to drop the charges, but we have to deal with this now. That was the FBI. Second, we have a pod waiting for you with 4 other guys just like you. Police, and I didn't know what a pod was until March. And third, which I thought was a UPS man, says, why didn't you answer the door when we were knocking? The last suicide attempt, I took 4 times the dose of Benadryl, the toxic dose of Benadryl, a lot, on Sunday, January 12th in the evening. How Benadryl works is it slows the body down, thus slowing the metabolism of it. As anything that raises the heart rate happens, the more is metabolized, hence the sparse memory. At the hospital, I was something acted and deemed not able to sign the intake paperwork, but somehow I could waive my rights. 1 hour after, I was in need of a guardian to sign my discharge paperwork, but was able to sign away my Miranda rights. 1 hour later, the interrogation was timed greater than 3 hours, but only 1 hour was recorded. I asked for my attorney at the hospital. When asked, someone showed up and said to answer the questions asked, and he said he would meet up with me after the D/C. My 2 interviews are conflicting with each other and conflicted with medical examiner's autopsies report. This was done in between. The officer states this in the officer states this in DD5, that he called the medical examiner prior to the second interview something, this report, and my testimony did not show up. The something was more about my attempts than anything. I stated that I wanted to kill myself right then during my second interview, and yet somehow sound something muted or so. First interview, I told them Megan's faith, something in 2002, 2003, somehow came down to arrest after the messaging in 2019. We didn't deal with her mother, something in 2007. The Medicaid fraud was and is BS. After I read the paperwork, when they left, I found out the time frame was when Meg took over, of course, right? When Meg took over the billing, I told her not to worry when I saw her Friday night, and I would keep her name out of it. Yeah, because he's such a great guy, as they were only talking probation at worst. I didn't know the scope of billing mistakes, as my attorney said to not discuss it. Also, the FBI had red flags because they found out I traveled on days I wasn't there. Patients were billed under me. That was the way the billing company set it up. All the therapists were credentialed, but we billed as a group, and I own the group. In addition, they were insinuating some sort of money laundering scheme because no one does as much community service as you report. I told them to stick it up their asses because I actually did more anonymously, like donations to charities and helping people with their rent, etc. Yeah, he's helping people with the rent when he can't even pay his own, right? Okay. Oh my gosh. He's a great philanthropist. I was supposed to meet with the attorney the Wednesday after Thanksgiving and return to Florida for an early Thanksgiving morning MD appointment for Meg that was long awaited. I woke up Sunday morning to the smell of burning. It was Meg burning journal entries she had written about her aunt and uncle, or she didn't want them to reveal them, as she was, hold on a minute. Why are these both 22? As she was saying the world was going to end, she was going to die, etc. I canceled going back to Connecticut that week because of the red flags and kept her under watch until we were to go to the MD appointment Thursday. I found out at 11:30 p.m. Wednesday night that she had already canceled the appointment earlier in the week because she didn't want meds and no one could help. I then asked her to call on one of the MDs in Gainesville, as we already moved Christmas to coincide with Tyler's birthday because of sickness, and we could something at Temple in Gainesville she wanted to go to, as we were something there for Tyler's birthday dinner. I only remembered about the investigation of Medicaid fraud when they showed me the newspaper article you called The Current about. That was shown to me in March. It was the first time I learned that I was facing 1 to 2 years in jail if convicted. I was allowed to openly fly to Florida and kept in contact with them over the phone. It was when I went silent because of the suicide attempt that they decided to come get me. I was described as psychotic on my arrival at jail by the head of the mental health counseling, and I do not remember most of the hospital time. none of the police station visit or the first 5 to 7 days here in jail, yet somehow I was competent to give statements, question mark, question mark. My attorneys made mincemeat of the prosecutor in our first pretrial something, and now they are going after suspension of the settlement. We have been something due to the virus. They have scheduled the pretrial for 12/10/20 and trial for January, but my attorneys are going to move it up to October once they figure out how jury selection is going to work because of the virus. The main motive the prosecution is using is financial, and I just gave up. All BS. Meg took care of finances, and all I knew is they were good. We had credit card debt that was budgeted and planned to be paid off from January 2020 to June 2020. And we have 2 business loans that were to be paid off in the beginning of January and March. Other than that, we had the mortgage for the condo at Wells Fargo. I only know the username and password. Meg handled that. The house rented, we were evicted from for not paying December and January, obviously. Office rent, the same as the house rental, and payroll. To my understanding, all was paid through December. I didn't micromanage her. Yeah, right. Okay, Tony. I trusted her. Even if we had financial problems, I have family that would help, and I wasn't opposed to working harder. I had to do so to finish paying college as my father lost his job. I never worried about that. I just worked harder and more. We had just invested money into rebuilding our website and something, and we're succeeding. In less than a month, we had record evals, new scheduled, and the new staff I hired was full. I canceled going north the first week, as I told you, and then canceled the following week for the same to tend to family. I was giving my schedules or something a heart attack. I was off the last half of December already for the holiday, and just secure as our AR was over. Oh, and something secure as our AR accounts receivable were over $250K. No worries from what I knew. Different from anyone else. I hope that this letter answers more of your questions, as it is just a summary, believe it or not. We had an amazing marriage, only hampered by the sickness that I accepted with open arms, as I was determined to find a cure for her. Anyways, I sit here in protective isolation custody to protect my case, and also for protection, as they say, I'm not jail material again. Writing, revealing self PT, calling my sisters and Uncle Martin, outlining my next book, his next book, and doing a framework of a nonprofit I am starting in memory of my family, MAT, so Meg, Alex, Tyler, Zoe, B, Breezy the dog, 2019, alive and at peace, dedicated to providing resources and services to the chronically ill, not just heart disease and cancer. I also work my case daily. I'm looking forward to going home, whatever and wherever that will be. I know I need to work on the name. So another reason I wrote to you is to offer forgiveness to you and extend a fragile olive branch. I don't know what kind of relationship I want with you, if or any. Time will tell. I offer you forgiveness for not being there to protect us that night, March 19th, 1980, although we were both not there, our respective nights in question for different reasons. I cannot forgive myself if I don't first forgive you. The happenings of that night in 1980 are not mine to forgive, as I really don't know what happened and don't really care at this point. I haven't dealt with you because I had my independent views formed by myself, as I am allowed to as an adult, about the person you were and how I was shown off at the funeral of Aunt Gloria as a trophy, despite letting you know I didn't want to be ahead of time. I also thought you were a pompous, narcissistic ass, and I didn't want to have a relationship with you. There, it was said. I am extending the fragile olive branch, and we will see. Don't burn it this time. This is between you and I. That is all. Do not share any info with Uncle Barton. The whole internet knows, Tony. Chuzzy or anyone else except Danielle. Chrissy or anyone else except Danielle. I guess it's his wife. Not even that I wrote to you. I'm going to close for now, as I am in extreme pain and I'm sure you are tired of reading. We definitely are. Please, if you correspond, watch what you write, as they scan and send the news and prosecutor all my mail. Tony. And he gives his address in case anybody wants to write to him. P.S. The boys performed in Nashville, July of 2019, and I uploaded their performances and a recital to YouTube. If you want to see them, on YouTube search Alec Todt and separately Tyler Todt. They were amazing. And that there is Tony's letter. So I know it's been a long time and I've got to get off and do something, but we have that, and we'll follow up on this with the Todt case and see. Tony thinks he'll be going to trial and being exonerated of this, pinned everything on Meg, and I think he thinks everything's going to work out fine. And then, well, he's outlining his new book. So let me know your thoughts, and we can talk about it later in a live or some other time. Hope you all are having a good day. Thank you so much. If this was helpful to you, I'd love it if you click the thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed to us, please subscribe so you know when we upload a new video or go live. Have a great one, guys. Bye now.